Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Take Back My Brain. I am your host, Laurie Hammer. I have the kitty, Tony, today with us, who's going to sit on my shoulder while we're talking to my very special guest, Sheryl Carroll. And we're going to talk about burnout. We're going to talk about hormones, and we're going to talk about just how to live life well as a woman. So, Sheryl, thank you so much for being here. I know you're going to be a wealth of information for my audience. She's also a health coach, and she's been doing this long enough to know what to do for women in menopause, perimenopause, and in burnout. So thank you, Sheryl, for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. And I think, I don't know if this has been your story into, like what you do, but, for me, like your mess becomes your message. So for me,
yes.
yeah. And, I feel like if I like really look back over my past and kind of what's driven me into this space, like there's so many kind of nuggets of gold and learnings and lessons that I'm now, sharing with, the women that I help. We were just saying before we pressed record that it's, the message around like the need to continually manage your energy and lifestyle in the context of all you have going on in your life is really important, particularly in midlife, because I feel like so many of us continue to be on the brink of burnout because we just don't know how to stop and recover. It's not a skill that we know
we're taught
how to do anymore.
That. No. And I look back and I think, gosh, if my younger self only knew what I know now, I definitely would have done things differently. And I wouldn't have, burnt myself out so bad, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was back in I'll give you a bit of my backstory. So I was always seen as the healthy, as the healthy one. So I was, the one who was always doing the exercise. I used to run marathons.
Oh yeah.
Back to back, crazy exercise person, choosing the salads over the, the fast food, etc. Yeah. So I was always the outlier. So I was seen as being healthy, but I was so far from healthy, in my understanding of health now. Like I didn't have a period for 10 years because I was stressing my body out so much with the amount of running that I was doing, with the amount of just really burning the candle at both ends, as one does, at that stage of life. But I was the healthy one. And I think, and really what got me interested in challenging my own understanding of health was when my best friend here in Australia, who traveled all around the world with me, also from South Africa as a chartered accountant, was diagnosed with bowel cancer when I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter.
Oh, wow.
So here I was bringing new life into this world when somebody who'd, been healthy with me had been given this diagnosis, and she actually passed away when my daughter was 6 weeks old. So it's coming up to the anniversary of her passing at the end of November. And that just absolutely shook me because I was so fearful around, like, if this could happen to her, it could happen to anyone. Like what are we? Are we just at the mercy of the universe when it comes to our health?
Right.
And so that really planted the seed of, do I actually know what I'm doing here? If I'm, the healthy one, and what I'm feeding my kids, the choices that I'm making, because now the responsibility is not just about me, it's about my little family.
Right.
So when I was on maternity leave with my son, which in 2018, I said to my husband, literally, like as he shot out, I'm like, I want to do some extra studying around health. And I just felt into the nutrition space. And a friend of mine was actually doing the Institute of Integrative Nutrition health coaching certification. She told me all about it. So I signed up for it, and it was great, but I felt like it just scratched the surface for me. I wanted to go deeper. And I started following Dr. Stephen Cabral. And so I was in the intake, his first intake of his health coaching certification.
Okay.
And so I did those levels 1 and 2. So I went deep. So I went deep into functional medicine, lab testing, and I finally understood why these things can happen. It's not just about the food that's on your plate. It's about the unresolved emotions, which I knew my friend had some of this sort of stuff, that she needed to resolve, that I think had been festering in her system.
Yeah.
So, from that, I felt so empowered and just so passionate about this message and helping people not like eliminate the fear, because I felt empowered and not fearful anymore. And so that was, the catalyst to me doing that and moving out of the job that I was in, which was, a senior role in a bank.
Wow.
And yeah, so I moved into the health space full time in February 21 after doing a part-time in my banking role as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Because when you have those experiences, it really shifts your paradigm as to what health is, right? So how would you define health to the audience now that you've had that shift compared to what it was before?
Mm-mm. So the way I define health is having the energy and the motivation to show up in life in the areas that are important to you.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so I think it's, and it can go, in ways of, showing up for those of you who have kids, like showing up for your kids in a way that is balanced and responsive and having the capacity to be present with them and not, rushing in your mind. It's also being able to show up for the sport that you enjoy and feeling strong and being able to build your strength and change your body shape. It's also being able to show up at your job and having, the brain power, which is your,
Right? Yes.
your area of focus, having the brain power to actually be engaged and make progress. And yeah, so to me, it's a very simple definition, but I feel that so many people are normalizing these little symptoms that they have that are actually preventing them from doing just that, whether it's, just being extra irritable with their kids or like extra irritable with their husband, so like there's just this friction in the relationships. And that's very often goes back to because there's friction in
you.
our bodies. And yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you help people to uncover what that friction is?
So it's a deep process.
Yeah.
So so the way I work is very holistic in nature. So it's when I work with somebody, so just say you came in to see me as a one-on-one client, I do, my intake form is very extensive. So I'm asking about how do they sleep? How do they eat? Have they had major stress in their lives over the last year? Have they had any traumatic events in their life? Are they supplementing? How much alcohol are they drinking? What are their symptoms? So I'm getting all of this information before I actually meet them. And then the first session is really a process of inquiry where I'm asking about all of these different things. And so from that initial deep intake, I can get a sense of where those friction points are. So it could honestly be that they're not drinking enough water and they are under eating. So they've got this low energy availability because they're always just focusing on everybody else. And they might grab like a piece of toast, like a crust of toast here and like a bite of a salad later, but actually they're not fueling themselves. So their body's giving them all these symptoms. So it could be as simple as that, or it could be as complex as somebody has had a very traumatic childhood. So there is this constant stress in their system that is driving dis-ease in their body, and that needs to be addressed alongside all of the physical lifestyle changes and the mindset work, etc. So it really just depends. And sometimes, you can only get to so much through the first session, but then as our sessions evolve, because I'm interacting with my clients pretty much daily.
Sure.
I see certain patterns come up, and so then I can inquire into, okay, well, that looks, what's going on there, just say with that relationship, or why do you keep sabotaging yourself with going back to X, or whatever it may be. So it's really then I uncover extra friction points as we go through the process that I can help them kind of work through.
Right, right. So do you feel like pretty much everybody has some level of burnout?
What I personally believe is that, particularly for women in midlife, where we've got this reduced ability to handle stress because our bodies are going through a stressful event anyway. Like it drives up inflammation, our immune system is changing when our hormones are changing, and we, as our ovaries start to shut down, we're handing over responsibility to the adrenal glands.
Right.
So the adrenal glands are then meant to be picking up the slack for the ovaries. And when our adrenals are just shut, then it makes the situation even more problematic, and we're just not as resilient. Our hormones provide us with a lovely, like a comfort blanket, for us to be more resilient when we're in our childbearing years. And when we're losing that protection, we need to shift the focus onto our lifestyle to fill in the gaps. Like, that's the way I like to think about it, whether it's nutritionally, whether it's intentionally taking time for recovery, whether it's saying no to things, like from a boundary standpoint. Because what I've seen and what I've realized in myself as well is that things just trigger you more. Like, if you're not really dialing in your lifestyle, things will start to trigger you more, and then you'll find yourself acting out of alignment with how you know yourself, or how you want to be presenting yourself. And then there's the negative self-talk, and
right.
it's just a and then that just adds more stress to the situation.
Right.
Yeah. So I do feel like women in this life phase where we've got, maybe, I mean, I've still got young kids, other women may have kids that are slightly older, but there's the aging parent situation. There's all the stuff that's going on globally, wars, pandemics, the whole, like, there's a lot. And what I sense is that women very much underestimate the stress on their system that the huge cognitive load puts on them.
Oh, completely.
Constantly switching between, okay, we're going to buy a birthday present for that person, you've got to be at this event at 6:00, and then I've got to drive there, and then I've got to remember to buy toilet paper. It's just like,
right.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate all of that? I mean, because it's all like a reality. I just went through 3 years with a mom with dementia, and like, there was no way out of that, right? And still having kids, and I homeschool, and I have my business. And so how do we, a lot going on, how do we set boundaries? Like, because once my mom died, like, my period stopped for like 4 months. Like, my body just was like, you're so tired.
Too much. Yeah.
It was just too much. It really was. It was too much. And and it was really hard to have boundaries during that time, right? Because there's certain life circumstances that, I preach it. I say the same things that you do, take care, self-care, and you do the very best you can. But sometimes life is really hard. And so I think for myself, like, looking at other areas of my life that I probably could have navigated or set better boundaries, because sometimes things take precedence. So how do you help people figure that out? Because it's definitely a delicate dance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so the way I think about, midlife health, wherever you are, in the context of what you have on your plate, because I agree with you, there are seasons in life where we are just going to be stretched that much more. I'm going through something similar right now where it's like, whoa, okay, there's a lot, but then it's the recognition that you need to be dialing in the other areas that you can control. So the 5 pillars of midlife health that I talk to are nutrition, movement, stress management, sleep, and then detoxification.
I love it.
So those are the 5 pillars. So all the way through midlife and beyond, these are the areas that I want women to be focusing on, because this is what's going to set their foundations for being you know, for being healthy. And, you know, so you spoke about going through a very stressful time. Like that's not, you can't control that. That's just
Right.
something that's going on. But what we can control is how we perceive the event and how we respond to the event. So you know that you're going to be giving out a whole lot of mental, emotional, physical energy to the situation with your mom.
Right.
So what that means is that you really need to be eating well to nourish your body so that it has, so that you have the resilience, because, you know, and perhaps supplementation for you
Right.
at that point in time, because you're flying through your vitamins and minerals, your adrenals are, you know, so maybe some adaptogens to support your adrenals, all of those things. So dialed in nutrition, actually moving your body, not too much because you don't want to be adding stress to the
There you
stress
go.
bucket,
Yeah.
but having a movement practice that actually is, you know, I wouldn't say when you are so stretched in a phase of your life, actually just moving your body in a way that brings you joy is what I encourage
Oh, me
people to
too.
do.
Yes.
Yeah. Like there will be a time, like that's what I'm doing right now. I've got all these amazing like goals that I want to build my strength, but with where I'm at in my life, I just love to move. So I'm just doing something
Yeah.
where I, you know, every day I'll do something, but it's not a structured exercise program that I would love to be doing, but I know that that will come. So move your body in a way that makes you happy. If that's walking, if that's Zumba, whatever that is, just do it. And then sleep. So
Sleep
really,
is so key. Do we just not underestimate sleep all the time? I mean, you can't heal if
it
you don't sleep.
no, absolutely. And like the next morning, you're gonna have the brain fog, you're gonna be
Yep.
irritable, you're gonna have your hunger hormones are gonna be all over the place, so you're not gonna
Right.
control what you eat. I mean, not I don't actually like the word control, but you are gonna want desire more because
Yes.
you'll struggle to feel satiated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all the rest, like rejuvenation, all of that happens when we sleep. So if you want from an aesthetic standpoint, like sleep it's
Right.
the
It
magic
helps with your
elixir.
wrinkles and yes.
Totally it's everything that's yeah, it's amazing, but I think that sleep very often goes out the window when there's a lot of stress. So then I encourage women to really focus on their daily routines. So consistent bedtime, wake time, morning light, you know, just treating themselves like a baby before bed, like really
Yes,
calming.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
So getting off your
And
phone, not watching TV, just keeping everything super calm.
yeah, and finding the little routine that works for them, like not following somebody else's. Like obviously you can use, you know, I give people like a calming menu that they can choose from. I'm like, just play around and see what feels right for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then uh, so we've done and then the last one was detoxification. So
Yeah.
we are exposed to so many toxins. We live in
Yeah.
a toxic soup, as you know. So
Yes.
just supporting, so you know, gut health, detoxification. So gut health, you know, I cover that when I coach people on nutrition, because we have to be thinking about our gut when we eat. So gut health and nutrition, like if we're thinking disease prevention, you know, those two are so
So
important to
interconnected.
be kind
Yeah.
of top of mind. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So do you recommend if somebody is experiencing burnout, especially perimenopause, menopausal, is there any testing that you recommend that they do to kind of help pinpoint where they are in that
Mm,
process?
mm. So I always encourage women to like do a detailed symptom log. So how are they feeling? Like what are the main things, and like not to normalize anything. Like so if somebody's like, oh, well, you know, I've always been constipated. I only go to the toilet every 5 days and that's normal for me. Like, no, that's not
It
normal.
might
If
be
you
normal for you, but it's common, right? It's common, but it's not normal.
it's not normal. Like
Not normal.
put
That's not
down
a good
all
thing.
the things, yeah, because they must feel uncomfortable. So put down all the things that you're tolerating that and then what you feel are symptoms. So there's that checklist, because I think what's so important is to have that to then marry with any blood testing or any functional medicine testing that they do, because symptoms are really important. Like the whole picture needs to be looked at when you do any testing, because sometimes things don't come up on tests when actually they very much are in existence, like things like parasites, for example,
Right. Mm-hmm.
or even things like Hashimoto's antibodies. People can have Hashimoto's without the antibodies being raised on the blood tests,
Right.
but actually they do have it. So yeah, so doing that detailed symptom, I always think is a starting point, because then from then, that's what we can talk about. Okay, so where do we think is going to be the biggest bang for buck when it comes to testing? I always encourage women to go and do just their routine blood testing with their medical provider. So to get whatever they, in different countries will test different things. You know, I think there's a whole lot of craziness going on when it comes to medical care at the moment. But, you know, just having your blood panel done, your, the metabolic panel with glucose, insulin, if possible, thyroid, sex hormones, all of that. Like I've got a handout, I'm sure you probably share this with your clients as well, that I share just to say, try and get these done. So at least then we've got that as a baseline. We want to check iron, vitamin D, all of that. And then depending on where they're at, if we feel that they've got this adrenal dysfunction, a really good test is the Dutch test, which is a urine and saliva test.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really powerful, because it also shows how people are metabolizing their hormones. So whether they're going down, you know, unfavorable pathways, which you can really support their body to get rid of the hormones in a much safer way.
Right.
Stool testing, I often find that there is the leaky gut, bacterial overgrowth, etc., going on. And then it very much depends. You know, if I feel that there is, you know, mold stuff going on, we'll test that. A full thyroid panel, because burnout, perimenopause, and thyroid imbalance pretty much go hand in hand.
Yes.
They all go together. And I cannot tell you how many women are suffering when it comes to thyroid health. Yes. And they're not feeling any better on medication. You know, I'm actually running a pilot program now, all supporting women with thyroid health, so that I can really educate them on how everything functions and how all the body systems are connected, and why their medication may not be working, and really optimizing their lifestyle to get to where they want to be, because they're almost giving up. Right. Which is just like heartbreaking for me. I'm like, don't give up. And they're feeling awful in their bodies, so tired, but they just don't feel like they have any answers. So yeah, I'm working on that at the moment. So I do think that a lot of women, if you ask them questions around, you know, are you cold all the time? Is your hair falling out? You know, you can't get up in the morning, you got brain fog, all of that. Very, very worthwhile running a full thyroid panel, which includes T3, T4, the antibodies, and reverse T3, which most doctors don't test. Right. It is really key. And I preach that all the time too, Sheryl. It's so important to get the full panel, so you know what your thyroid is doing, because your TSH only tells you what your signal is from your pituitary to your thyroid. That's it. It doesn't tell us what this beautiful butterfly gland is actually doing or not doing. So you have to get the full picture if you want to treat it. And I feel like so many women are misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, and, you know, they're given a thyroid med, then they're given an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety med, and they're like, here, okay, good luck. That's the best we can do. And there's just so much more, like you're talking about. You know, we have to look at the nutrition. We have to look at the detox. We have to look at the sleep and the stress level and, you know, all of those things. So when someone is going from perimenopause, you know, into menopause, do you have like top 3 things that you're like, if you do nothing else, make these changes, because it's going to profoundly shift how you feel inside, mentally and physically? Yeah. So I'd say that the 3 things I would say is, number 1, have a protein forward diet. Love it. So protein forward, with diversity of plant food. So that's like really focusing on dialing in enough good quality protein. Yes. So, you know, 1 egg is not okay for breakfast, because that only gives you like 5 grams of protein. So that would be the first one. Number 2 is stop the chronic cardio, please, because it's only gonna push you into a further stress state and actually cause your body to hold on to weight and cause more hormonal dysregulation. So really focusing on resistance training, building your muscle, building your bone, because it's just going to wither away if you don't. And we need it to remain functionally strong as we age. So, and so I think that's probably my third thing. You only gave me 3. My third thing is to really think of this change as, or this transition as an opportunity for change in a positive way. You're setting yourself up for success for the rest of your life. So it's not just about thinking about fitting into your skinny jeans for a party you're going to in 2 weeks' time. It's so important to be thinking about what you want to be doing when you're 85, 90.
Exactly.
How you want to be showing up. Do you still want to be traveling? Do you want to be self-sufficient? Do you still want to be working? Like, if you love, I certainly want to still be working when I'm 85 because I love what I do. So that's really shifting your mindset to kind of moving away from this being a pain and an irritation, and to really focus on your symptoms as being little like help hands coming up from your body to say something is out of balance. Because the perimenopausal symptoms are only extreme when there is significant imbalance in our body.
Right.
So, I really just said, and I experienced it firsthand that, my symptoms have been more extreme early on because I didn't have a period for such a long time. And I went through a phase of burnout when I was in corporate and doing my coaching just at the beginning part-time. Young kid, didn't sleep, used to go into work after being up at 3:00 in the morning, walking him around the neighborhood trying to get him to sleep, and then working a full-time job. Bosses who didn't understand what it was like to have young kids. So anyway, so that pushed me into a little hole that I had to like
climb
out of. That took me a while, but from our discussion earlier, I'm so dialed into when I'm slipping back into that place. I can recognize it. I can recognize that I withdraw. I can recognize that I become very short, and it's like understanding that and knowing that I need to then further dial in my self-care, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to be consistent in what I'm trying to achieve in my life.
I love it. I know I only gave you 3, but those are amazing. Like, those 3 things can radically change your life. Yeah. Especially number 3, right? I mean, protein and movement is amazing. And it's so much of your mindset. So if your mindset is good and you're really good at boundaries and assessing yourself, then like the protein and all that stuff kind of just falls into place, because you're like, I got it. And it's when, that number 3 kind of just falls off, that's when disease happens, that's when burnout happens. That's when your hormones are messed up and you don't get your period for 4 months or, for 10 years, like yeah, it's such a big deal.
Because, the more I'm in this work, the more I just so much appreciate that, mindset is everything. We become our thoughts. So if you are thinking that, and I'll be perfectly honest, when I first realized I was in perimenopause, I was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on the shelf. I'm so old. This is like, I'm never going to have sex again. This is the end of my life. And then I went on this huge rabbit hole, like investigation into what exactly this all meant. Because unfortunately, and one thing to say about, and it may have changed now, but in that health coaching certification, not one mention of perimenopause.
Right.
And that was just, so when I realized this, and the reason I knew was because one of my friends who's a fellow practitioner, did a Healy scan on me, like a bioresonance
Yeah.
scan, and on my report,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, popped out the word menopause. And I was like, what?
What?
This is crazy. And I was 41 then. And I'm like, this is just bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was actually the catalyst to me going deep into this space, because I was like, if I'm confused and I'm educated in health and hormones, like, how is anybody else going to navigate this?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and then I kind of pieced together the puzzles of my symptoms and why, when I'd always been so resilient, I'd always been able to handle everything with such grace and ease, without,
Mhm.
balanced moods, all of that. All of a sudden
Yep.
at 41, when I hit burnout, which was nothing that I'd faced before, and I was like a shell of myself. This is quite something. And then I just really focused on dialing in the lifestyle that I spoke to you about, like recognizing that I was still trying to do stuff that worked for me in my 30s. And I just really needed to focus on slowing down, which is so hard for me
Oh, I
because
understand.
I'm a doer.
Yes, I get it. As type A personalities, we're like, all right, we got to get all of this done because we know that we can, because we're capable.
Mm.
And everybody needs us, whether they really do or not, but we're sure that everybody needs us.
Absolutely, absolutely. But but now I'm so much more dialed into my body, and I recognize when I'm, teetering on that place, and
Yes.
when I'm not showing up, and that's why I think is another really important exercise that I get my clients to do, is to get very, very clear on their values
Yes.
and how they want to show up in their lives. And so I reflect on that every day. I'm like, well, how have I showed up? Like, what have I learned today? And when I recognize that I've been, very reactive, short when I didn't need to be short,
Right.
like recognizing, okay, that something needs to be tweaked. I'm pushing too hard.
Yeah.
I need to dial back a bit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I know sometimes I've, especially like right after my mom died, and we had that, whole period of time, dealing with that. And I was so snappy with my husband. Like, he did a couple of things, and even my daughter's like, she's like, that may have been a little excessive. Thank you. I'm so sorry, honey. And like, he was so sweet and understood and stuff, but you're like, oh my goodness, I couldn't even handle like the littlest things. It was just too much for a short period of time there. And I'm just like, I am so just physically and emotionally exhausted, and having to take some time, to myself. It was just really hard to do, right? Because you have
Mm.
things you have to get done. But I always tell my clients, if you don't choose to do it, your body will choose for you. And I guarantee you'll like your choice better than your body's choice.
I love that. Absolutely. And I think, particularly where we're in, this entrepreneurial space, the more I've been on this journey, is the more I recognize that when I'm reaching that point, nothing creative is going to come. So
Right.
actually, you need the spaciousness to create.
You do.
So yeah, so pulling back, and I think it goes against everything we've been taught. Being in, for me, most of my career in corporate, you go 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 go. You've always got these deadlines. You're working, you're working, you're working, you're working. You never take a break unless there's a public holiday or something.
Right.
But actually, like, we have to have these creative cycles, because otherwise you're not going to get to the expansion that
Mhm.
you want to, in terms of your business growth and reach, etc. So that's a real, like, work in progress for me, like
Oh,
knowing when to slow. But I'm glad that you took the time for yourself, and also that sound like you beat yourself up about your snappiness, because it's a learning, right? It's a
yeah.
learning that, and a signal that, okay, I'm out of alignment here. I need
Right.
to recalibrate.
Yeah. And I've learned to, and it's different seasons of life, but I've been trying to implement, and I'm getting better all the time, is like, at the beginning of each year, you like mark off days that that you're definitely going to take off. Right. So you already incorporating time off. And then I reassess every 3 months. Okay, what else do I need to what other time do I need to take off? Like, what other space do I need to accomplish when I need to accomplish the next 3 months? Like, what's going to serve me and what's not? And at the beginning of each month, I reassess again, like, okay, is this still going to work for me, the schedule that I have outlined, right? And so it's just constantly reassessing and making sure that you have that space and time to be creative with your family, or just to snuggle and watch a movie and, have some cheesy chips and salsa or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
Just carving out that time and making sure that you put it in your calendar, because I've learned that if you don't schedule it, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I have to always check myself around I just go into like this because I love what I do.
Right.
And I just want to do,
I get it.
I just want to, do more and reach more people and everything. But, I've when I was in corporate and my own career now, I do have to work on, just stopping sometimes.
I understand. Are there any final words that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, just going back on the the concept around that number 3 that I mentioned, which is all around, seeing it as an opportunity, really just for women to maybe think about if they have any like negative biases around this transition.
Got it.
Really think about that, because, like I said, we become our thoughts. So if you, in the back of your mind, think, okay, well, you're aging, so that just means you're going to be, fat and grumpy, and
right.
you're a no one, which is what unfortunately I think so many women do start to feel that, then that is what you are going to become, and that is not what you are at all.
Right.
And you absolutely have the ability to live well into your 80s, 90s with a strong body, with good energy, with a brain that works well, filling your life with the things that make you happy. It is all possible. It's just about laying the foundations and doing the hard work to reconnect with yourself now.
Yeah.
So I think just one other thing is that I feel that a lot of women, who enter their 40s and have really been focusing on, raising the kids and all of that, there's been a lot of outward energy that they can sometimes also lose touch with themselves and what makes them happy and all of that. So don't let that put you off. Just start experimenting again.
Right.
Go to some classes and reconnect with friends, and just have a beginner's mind when it comes to this time of self-discovery and like really focusing on yourself, because it's definitely worth it.
Oh, I totally agree. 100%, Sheryl. That's such a great message. I appreciate all the wonderful things that you're doing for the world. Where can my listeners find you, and any resource that you'd like to share with them?
Yes, absolutely. So my business name is Your Tiny Voice Health Coaching. So my website is ytvhealthcoaching.com. So the reason for that name is that I'm quite short, and all my friends here in Australia call me Tiny.
Oh, funny.
but it's actually the whole concept around my business is around working with people to bring balance to their bodies so that they can listen to their intuition, to their tiny voice, so that because it's only really from a place of balance that intuition is going to guide you in the right way.
Right.
So that's really, what the meaning behind that is as well. So I'm on Instagram at your_tiny_voice, Facebook, YTV Health Coaching. And yes, I've created a guide called Unlocking Midlife Health, which is setting out the details behind each of those pillars. So it's on my Linktree.
I love that.
You can just, I can share with you the link, so you can just pop it in.
I'll put it in the show notes. Yep, absolutely. That'll be great.
Yeah. And then something else that I've created is a blood test form, which highlights the optimal ranges, so people can assess their own blood work against optimal ranges for some of the key lab markers that I like women to run on a regular basis.
That's on your website too?
Yeah. I'll share the link with you.
So okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Sheryl. Those are fantastic resources. So I encourage all of you to follow Sheryl and get those resources from her. And thank you so much, Sheryl, for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having
It's been
me.
a great conversation, and I know my listeners are really blessed. So, and I'm really grateful for all of you who are listening. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe. Excuse me. And I will see you on the next episode. Have a beautiful day.